All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and let you know that we've got a disappointing announcement in today's episode. And we've also got some really exciting announcements. The first announcement that needs to be acknowledged right here from the get is that my beautiful wife, Catherine, is not going to be with us on this episode, which that in and of itself is enough reason to just give up on this episode altogether. But I'm going to tell you something that you may not, I'm going to tell you about something actually that you may not want to miss. And it's going to come towards the end of this episode, if not at the very end. And it's me for the first time in the Now That We're a Family podcast history. It's going to be me performing an original song of mine that is very central to the topic at hand in this episode. So, I mean, maybe that's not exciting to you either, and I won't take it personally if it's not. But if you want to be a part of history, then I suggest you stick around and hear that. It might not be the most positive history, may not even be memorable history, but it is going to be history in the making. So that's going to come at the end of this episode. Now, why is my beautiful wife, Katie, not with us today? I wish that I could say she is doing great and that she's well and that she's just, busy with something equally as important as this, but I can't say that. She is not that well right now. In fact, she's fighting a fever, and this morning she woke up with mastitis for the first time ever. And we've had our 4 children. This is the first time that she's experienced that, and it's really been a bummer. And so she's feeling terrible right now, and she's lying in bed trying to recover and get through this mastitis. She just went so hardcore last week. You know how gung-ho Katie is and how ambitious she is. And it seems like, maybe this isn't true, but it seems like with each one of our children that we've had in the postpartum season, there's come a point where Katie's starting to feel really good. She's like, this is awesome. And she just has this to-do list piled up in her brain or on an actual list. And she just attacks it. And that oftentimes really prolongs, I should say, the postpartum season. And she did just that thing yesterday. And this is kind of crazy, actually, the timing of all this. She decided to get back into meal prepping for the week. And so she went shopping yesterday for 6 days worth of meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then she prepped not breakfasts, but she prepped all the lunches and dinners for 6 days. So I guess, 12 meals? She prepped them all last night, and she was up till midnight doing that, prepping meals. And I mean, it's one of those things where it's kind of a good thing that we have meals because she's totally out of commission now. And so we're eating great, the kids and I are, but it came at a great cost. And that is Katie really kind of overdoing it. And so we're all going to miss her in this episode. I'm going to greatly miss her. I know when I listen back I think this is the second time, maybe the third actually, that I've had to do a podcast by myself. And every time I've done that and I've listened back while I'm editing it, I've been highly disappointed with how I sound just talking by myself. And when I don't have my wife to kind of bounce things off of and to hear her thoughts and her opinions, it's also kind of comforting to know that, Katie and I talk about this all the time, to know there's like one more filter that you have when you're talking with somebody else. And Katie and I obviously have each other's best interest in mind with this podcast. And so we, in real time, while we're recording, one of us will say something and the other person can kind of clarify what they mean by something that might sound kind of strange or confusing. And I'm not going to have that today. So if I say something that's strange and confusing, it's probably because I mean it. No, I'm joking. It's probably because I misspoke. Today's episode, also, for those of you watching on YouTube, if it looks like I'm in a dark, cavernous cave, that's because I am. In fact, here in North Idaho, which is where we live, there are mountains all around us. And I decided for this episode, since it's going to be by myself, to hike to the farthest mountain, the farthest peak that an eye could see, that at least my eye could see, and set up just a temporary podcast studio, start recording. So if it looks cavernous, if it sounds cavernous, that's because it is. This actually might be a cave that a bear just got done hibernating in, because spring came early this year in North Idaho, and so bears seem to be out and about, which left this little studio vacant for my recording. So today's topic, I haven't decided a title for it, but it's going to be around this concept of a father, which is me, fighting the potential of resentment towards your children, or potentially even towards your wife. Maybe resentment not towards your children. That sounds so mean and dramatic, and obviously it is. You're their father. You're the one that brought them into this earth. So why would you resent them? But so maybe you don't ever fight resenting your children, because I don't think I've actually resented my children, but I think maybe I've resented the fact that I'm a father. I love my children, but then I look at my duties as a father and I'm thinking, boy, this just seems like so much. And this is coming from a guy that has aspired to be a father since as long as I can remember. And so I'm assuming that if I have these thoughts, which are very few and far between, let me clarify, this is less than a half a percent of what my feelings are towards fatherhood. I love being a father. But this week, if I'm honest, I experienced the temptation of wanting to resent the reality of being a father. And I'm going to share why and kind of what brought that about. But my assumption is that if me, a guy that has just dreamed of being a father, looked forward to it since as long as I can remember, finds myself fighting this temptation to resent fatherhood, certainly this might be something that other men experience, or a sentiment that is, who knows, maybe it's quite popular, maybe it's out there amongst fathers, Christian fathers even. And I'm going to assume I'm talking to Christian fathers, and so I'm not going to clarify to you how important the role is of being a father and what a blessing it is, and a God-given role, and it's a reward in and of itself. It's a calling, and it is so valuable. And I think it can be so fulfilling as well. I've experienced that. So I'm not going to try to convince you that it's those things, because my thought is, and my hope is that if you're a Christian listening to this, then you do value parenthood. You see the value in children. You see God's design in creating man and woman and saying, hey, I created man in my image. Him kind of saying, like, them together in this unit, this family unit, they're representing me. They're an image of me, image bearers. And we see that is under attack more, it seems like, more than ever, this day and age, where anything that resembles anything bearing God's image is under attack. And certainly the family bears God's image. And so that's going to be attacked by Satan and by all of secular society. And so we see that, and yet even when we hold fast to this conviction that fatherhood is important and that it's so crucial and it's something that's an honor and a privilege, I think that we are but I think susceptible to feeling like it's not the great calling that it is. And so I'm going to kind of talk you through my week in kind of play by play. And I do want to say that this week I'm at a point, and the reason I'm actually talking about this is because I'm sitting at a place on Monday where the last 5 days have been the most rewarding parenting days of my career as a father. But it was probably the 3 worst parenting days of my career leading up to these most recent 5 days. And so, going back to Monday, Katie and I started the week off with so much desire to kind of get back into a flow. Lawrence was born, 5 weeks ago, and we thought, man, it's been great. We've loved it. We've really kind of coasted and taken it easy and kind of been in, survival mode. And so we haven't put a ton of pressure on ourselves. But this last week was the first week where we just made a huge to-do list. And Katie, as I already mentioned, was starting to feel pretty good. And we thought, yeah, let's do it. Let's get back to life and start tackling and moving forward in our goals. And so we put the big to-do list on the fridge, and first thing Monday morning, it's like the kids got up earlier than anticipated. after them not sleeping as good as anticipated. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, we're not starting things off as I had hoped for. And the to-do list kind of gets pushed down, it seems like, on the agenda, because obviously our children have their physical needs that we get to have the joy of fulfilling and serving. But that's not how I was viewing it on Monday. And that's kind of how all Monday went. And there was lots of bickering in the home. Not just my children. It was coming from me. It was coming from me towards my wife. It was from me towards my children. And it was not a joyful home. It was not a peaceful home. And the fruits of the Spirit were not very evident in our home on Monday. And so that was a disappointing day. And then that kind of carried over into Tuesday. And, just to kind of mention some of the things that I was hoping to really move forward on this week. The first one was business. Katie and I have a couple businesses right now that we're operating, and they're what provide for our family. And since having our fourth born, Lawrence, we had kind of put like our growth activities on hold for these businesses, and we are kind of in maintenance mode, which we're grateful that we are even able to be in a position where we could be in maintenance mode for 4 weeks and still be provided for. But we thought, okay, this maintenance mode should end now, and our MO should be more towards growth right now. And that was our mindset going into the week. And so that put a lot of, I guess, excitement in Katie and I, but then also a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation going into the week. And we weren't meeting those expectations. We weren't hitting the goals. We weren't doing the actions that we knew were necessary to move our businesses forward. And I just started saying, well, it's because of and I started saying to myself anyways, who knows, maybe I said it out loud to Katie. I started saying, boy, if this because of the kids, if they were on a better schedule, if they weren't so needy, or if they, weren't so whiny, or what's going on right now? Are they sick? Do they have colds? Why are they requiring so much from us this week? And that was kind of my mindset from Monday to Tuesday. Also this week I had scheduled some recording sessions. I'm working on 2 different music projects now that had really been put on hold since the baby. And I thought, great, finally, I'm going to be able to move forward in my music projects. I'm going to get back to my workout routine. It's been in postpartum mode with my workout routine, and enough of that. I'm going to get back in shape. I'm going to get back into jiu-jitsu. I haven't been to jiu-jitsu for, 3.5 weeks. It's time to start getting some use out of that membership that I'm paying for down there at the jiu-jitsu place. So I need to start going back to that. We need to have some families over for dinner this week. We want to get connected with these families at our church. These are just kind of some of the things that we wanted to really knock out this week. And it was very evident by the end of Tuesday that we had fallen far behind in achieving these goals. And the only thing I could point to as being what was holding us back was our kids. I was thinking, boy, they're taking all of our time. From sun up till sundown, it seems like I'm changing a diaper, or I'm making a peanut butter sandwich, or I'm stopping a quarrel and resolving a fight, amongst siblings, or I'm, putting a Band-Aid on a wound. And if, that's getting in the way of us accomplishing these goals. And I understand how ridiculous that sounds, but that might be pretty accurate to the sentiment in my heart on Tuesday. And again, this carried on through much of Wednesday, and it was Wednesday afternoon that I had kind of given up on the goals of the week that we had established, the checklist that we had hung on the fridge. I thought, well, boy, there's no way we're going to get the things done that we really wanted to get done this week. And at this time, I'm looking at my children. The house is a wreck because they're just kind of going around willy-nilly, doing what they want to do. And my heart was not towards them at all. It was totally on other things. And I thought, boy, what's something that we could, what would be one thing that would make this week a win? And I'm so grateful that I've got a father that never ceases to exhort me and any of my married siblings in being a parent. I mean, he is relentless in telling us to not take our heart off of our children, to have our heart towards our kiddos. And I'm just so grateful that the Lord's made him my father, because it was a phone call with him on Wednesday. And I didn't even tell him probably, the real embarrassing thoughts in my brain towards my kids, but I think he could probably sense where my priorities were. And he just exhorted me to be all, he uses this term all the time. He goes, hey, well, be all in with your family, with business, with, working out, with your music stuff. That's going to come and go, and you're going to have opportunities where you can really go all in, but you have to 100% of the time be all in with your kiddos. And so after a brief phone conversation with him, I was convicted, and I thought, of course, like, I'm kind of going, like, I was like telling myself mechanically, I wouldn't say that my heart was here, but I was telling myself, that's right. I know that fundamentally I value my children far more than these other things that I put on this to-do list. And maybe my heart wasn't there, but I knew deep down that's right. I've said for years, my priorities are, my faith, my marriage, my children, and then, maybe my physical health, and then my business and all these things. I've said that for years. And here I was just simply not acting like it, not thinking like it, not behaving like that. And I'm going to say that my heart, by Wednesday night, my heart was not towards my children. It was still kind of dwelling on all the things that I was not accomplishing this week. But out of, I guess, I don't know if it was guilt or out of just maybe necessity, out of knowing something needed to change, I pulled out a child training book. And I mean, it's probably embarrassing even to acknowledge how long it had been since I had opened a child training book, but I pulled out a child training book, and just from the first sentence, I was so convicted. I was so convicted on where my heart had wandered to regarding the fleeting things of this world that aren't bad. I'm never going to, tell you shouldn't go build a business or work out or play music. But clearly my priorities had gotten out of line, and I had gotten out of touch with what God truly cared about and what deep down I truly cared about. And so starting Wednesday night, we started having proactive training sessions. And this is so much different than, reactionary discipline. We were being proactive in establishing training sessions with our children. Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. We did it again tonight, Monday night. And to see the instant feedback from my kids, the results are so gratifying, substantial, tangible when you are proactive, especially with the children at my age. I mean, they're 4 years old, 3 years old, and Lewis is almost 2 years old. And up until Wednesday, they had just been acting like I didn't care about them because I was acting like that. And so they were just fighting for my attention. They were fighting for Katie's attention. They were fighting with each other as a result of this. And from Wednesday on, my heart turned towards my children, and I like their hearts turning towards me and towards Katie was so noticeable. It was palatable. You thought, boy, which was just kind of convicting and heartbreaking at first, because you're thinking, they know where my heart is at, and they're so much more responsive when they know my heart is towards them and for them, and I'm proactively training them up in the way that they should go rather than reactionarily disciplining them. And Katie and I had definitely gotten into a mode of disciplining out of reaction versus training in a proactive manner. And the Bible tells us to train up our children in the way that they should go, not discipline your children in the way that they should go, not react to your children in the way that they should go. The word training is very intentional and deliberate. We don't train out of reaction. We train thinking to the future, preparing ourselves for an upcoming event. And we had really gotten into a mode of doing a disservice to our children and not giving them realistic expectations for what we saw being good behavior. And as a result, we had kicked into this, reactionary parenting of just disciplining out of reaction versus proactively training. So I say all that to say that brought us to Wednesday nights, and it's crazy convicting to think of where my heart was maybe Wednesday afternoon to where it is now, where I'm so gratified and fulfilled and grateful to be the father of my children. And I feel that it is just the greatest calling that I could ever have. And I also see how much they need my heart to be in that place of being a father. So that's a quick timeline, I guess, of how I got to where I'm at today on this subject. And I'm just going to share with you a few takeaways from going through that experience and what I'm kind of dwelling on right now. First thing is that I'm so grateful for the opportunity to put my money where my mouth is or was. And you've heard me say on this podcast, you've heard Katie say, oh, we love children. We love parenting. Heck, we named this podcast the Now That We're a Family podcast. We're all about family. We think it's God's great design to be, to continue on being image bearers for him and to nurture. It's the number one place of discipleship. That's where the church really is built. It's in the home, and then it goes out from there. Katie and I hold to that belief strongly. And so it probably should come as a surprise to hear me expressing some of these thoughts, but I guess I'm grateful that my children gave me this opportunity, that circumstances gave me this opportunity to realize, boy, talking is one thing, and it's a very ineffective thing sometimes when it comes to parenting. It's a very, that's all I was doing there for a season, was just talking about how much I valued parenting, how much I enjoyed being a parent. But I needed to take action. I needed to put my money where my mouth, and quite literally put my money where my mouth was. What were we missing out on? That we were missing out on making more. That was probably the first thing that we started getting frustrated with, was that our business wasn't able to grow at the rate that we wanted it to grow. And here our children are at our feet, just saying, love me, invest into me, build me, disciple me, teach me of God's truth. This is their heart's desire, whether they know it or not. And there they are. Jesus talks about the harvest being ripe and plentiful. And I'm looking at the greatest harvest that I'll have an opportunity to pour into right here at my feet. Never, ever in my life will I have a greater ministry opportunity than my children and my wife here and now. And doesn't last. The season doesn't last forever. It's not something that I can just say, well, yeah, I'll get to that. When? You'll get to it what? When they're 30 and they're off, living their own life? No, the time is now to do this ministry. And so to have a wake-up call is such a blessing. So I'm grateful for that. The second thing I'm so grateful for, I mean, I don't even know if I can express the gratitude that I have for this fact, and that is a spouse, my wife, who is united. We are united in this vision of wanting to raise up godly children, of wanting to pour into our kids while we have them here in our home. To be united on that front, to have, a fellow soldier that you're going to fight this battle with in life on so many levels, but specifically in this category. It's sure Katie and I are like-minded when it comes to who God is and what he's done in the gospel and who we serve. But there are many, many couples that, they might share that commonality, but their view on children might differ greatly. And I cannot tell you how blessed I am as a man to have a wife that is she's so much even more passionate about being a mother than I am probably about being a father. She is so committed to walking out this calling of being a mother to our children. So I'm just so grateful that Katie and I, from the moment we had this conviction, and, I think that I kind of was even convicted a little bit prior to Katie being, I'm not, bagging on Katie here. It's just where the timeline of how it worked. I was probably the one that led our family into this. I'm the leader of our home. I'm the one that led our family into this place of strife and turmoil. And so, that's kind of where I led Katie, and thankfully the Lord snapped me out of it. And Katie was just right there in support of that shift and saying, wait a second, all those checks that we have not checked off, all those to-do lists, forget about it. We're sitting down every day with this child training book with our children, and we are going to, without fail this week and for the foreseeable future, not miss a day of training our children. To have somebody that's just side by side with me on that is so empowering and just such a gift from the Lord. So that's something that's just a tremendous takeaway for me. And I would encourage any couple, get united on that front. come to unity regarding your children and have your unity come from a submission to God's word. Go to his word on what you are going to do with your children, how you're going to parent them, how you're going to train them up, and where they are going to be on the priority list. Another takeaway that I have, I'm sitting here and I mean it when I say I'm so fulfilled as a father right now, but I would be lying to say that all those other desires that I had at the beginning of the week are gone. Now that I'm so fulfilled as a father, I no longer have ambition to grow my business or to, get back to my workout regimen and to record my music and to, continue on in jiu-jitsu. No, all those desires are certainly there. And I don't think I relate very well with men that say, all I want to do is be a father, and I don't care what I do for a job, or I don't care about anything else. I just want to be a father. That's, even with how passionate I am about being a father, there are other things that I still want to do. And I'm just talking about where I want to place, fatherhood and these other things on my priority list. But a way I kind of, if you need consolation on feeling like, I'm putting off maybe my personal dreams to be a father, and you acknowledge that, no, but this is a better thing. I'm not going to let, this business aspiration or this career or whatever, this outside ministry get in the way of this great thing of being a parent. Maybe that's where your heart's at. Well, my consolation is that first, like, life can be long sometimes. Seasons come and seasons go. And first off, when you have your children working for you and with you, it's crazy how much more capable you are of doing things in addition to parenting, because you've got them it's like you've got this momentum where you're saying, no, I prioritize you. I'm putting my first fruits into these things that matter most to me, and they get the first of my energy, they get the best of me. Then all of a sudden it's like you get energy back from them and you're able to go and attack these other things. I'm not saying that's how it works. Like it's just this, this cause and effect, or like it's a magic genie bottle thing that you just do and you get to go fulfill all your other dreams too. That's not what I'm saying. But I have found that taking care of the need first of, your faith, your wife, your children, there's just lots of life to live. However, when we jump over those things, it throws off everything else that we're doing. I don't know. This isn't going to be like a mathematical thing where when I'm saying like, when you don't prioritize your children, then those 6 hours that you have are totally fruitless. But when you do prioritize your children, you get done in an hour, what you could have done in those 6 hours. That's not what I'm saying, but there is something kind of like that happening that I'm not able to explain. And Katie and I have seen that happen where we thought, okay, forget about our goals. We're going to prioritize our children. That's going to be the one thing we focus on this week. And then we look backwards and we think, well, boy, we also got so many of those goals accomplished too. Again, that wasn't the point. And I don't want that to be the takeaway from this, but it's some consolation if you're needing it. And other consolation is, like this season of parenting is here today and it's gone tomorrow. Like another area that I feel like the Lord has just been gracious to me in is I look at my kids and I can't help but seeing them as young adults right now. Like I'm like, boy, sure, you're 4, 3, and 2, but just almost daily I look at them in the eye or I look at what they're doing and I'm thinking, no, they're here today and they're gone tomorrow. They're going to be young adults so soon. And to miss this I know I would just, it would just pain me to miss this opportunity that God has granted me to pour into my children. That said, even that season is short. Like so many of my aspirations, it's like, okay, well, maybe I can't do them this decade. Well, there's, who knows, another decade coming. And again, this might sound like funny consolation, but I do feel like when we are in this mode of, it's easy when you're in your 30s, maybe 20s, 30s, and early 40s, these stages of being in the trenches with your children, those very developmental years. It's so easy to think that I've got to do all these other things now or they'll never happen. And I just don't think that's the truth. The only thing you're able to do just now is parent your kids. So many of the other things that we think are competing for our time or that we let compete for our time can happen at different seasons in our life. but you get one crack at this. You know, I say that we love comeback stories here in America. You know, we love the story of the guy that, you know, failed 3 times and then his 4th time was a home run and now he's the billionaire. Or, you know, the guy that couldn't pass through, you know, 6th grade reading, and all of a sudden he decided to go back to school as a grown adult and now he's a PhD and, you know, an author or whatever. We love those types of stories, but the comeback story I don't want to have to tell is, hey, I blew it with my children then, but I'm doing better now with these children. And this isn't to condemn anybody that maybe feels like that's the case, because obviously God knows their future, and there's always hope and grace and so much hope in the Lord. But I know that from where I'm sitting here, it's like, no, I don't want a comeback story or a do-over story with these kids that I have in my home. I want this is kind of the one shot I have with it, and I don't want to blow it. And it sounds like I'm putting everything on me. We serve a sovereign God who, in spite of all of our failures, leads our children out, which brings me to my song. I can just feel the suspense and the anticipation on the other side of this podcast. As you've heard me pontificating about being a father, you're thinking, boy, just sing your song. All we want to hear is you croon us with that voice of yours. Maybe you're thinking that. Maybe you weren't thinking that. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to do my best to do that for you right now. I'm going to set the mic down and pull my mandolin out. So if you hear some clunkiness, then that's what that is. This is a song that I wrote. It's not finished. It's incomplete. But you guys are going to be the first non-family members ever to hear this song. And so I don't know how you should feel about that. You tell me how you feel about it. How about that? I'm going to set this microphone down. The audio is going to become different as I'm in this, huge cave, and I'm setting the microphone down. Here we go. All right. Well, I'm a father that cares, but a father that scares. When I think of my kids in this world that they're in, it's dangerous when everyone's so aimless. 'Cause the message they hear from their teachers and peers is riddled with lies and powered by fear. It's contagious when everyone's so aimless. Arrows are meant to take flight, get them ready for the fight. Draw your bow and take your aim. I've got a quiver full, ready to unload. Send him out in his holy name. 'Cause you, God, lead your children in victory. No matter the size of the enemy, the battle is already won. So we raise an army to stand for your glory. 'Cause we know the end of the story. The battle is already won. They win the hearts of our youth with illusions of truth. They spread their fables while they stare at their navels. Deception, it's the enemy's weapon. Yeah, but we've got a sword we must learn to wield. 'Cause the season is short that we have them here. Provision, it's only part of the mission. It happens day by day. Train them up in the way, and when they're old, they'll not depart. Then once you've done it all wrong, you'll see that all along he was a hero from the start. 'Cause it's you, God, who lead our children in victory. No matter the size of the enemy, the battle is already won. So we raise an army to stand for your glory. 'Cause we know the end of the story. The battle is already won. There it is. That was the song that none of you were waiting to hear. No, maybe some of you were. Folks, thank you for being a part of this podcast. Thank you. Prayers for Katie and her health would be appreciated. We're really hoping that she is able to recover quickly. She's been resting a lot. Thank you so much for just your support and camaraderie when it comes to parenthood. I am such a privileged man to be blessed with the wife and the children that the Lord has blessed me with, and to be given this position of kind of steward of God's children, his young children, Leon, Lucy, Lewis, and Lawrence. And I just feel support even by you listening, by you guys commenting or leaving ratings and reviews. I feel that support in this journey of being a parent. What a high calling it is to be these disciple makers of parents that we are, and to grow his church, and to continue on the Great Commission of bringing forth his gospel, starting in our home and seeing where it goes from there. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I certainly am excited to be back next week with my lovely wife in the Now That We're a Family podcast. All right, Bo. All right. What? Okay. I'm not going to edit that out. I'm just going to say goodbye.